It's time for Drummer Nation. Robyn Flans is an entertainment journalist known especially for her insightful Modern Drummer magazine interviews with many of the biggest names in the industry. Robyn has authored 4 music books, many album liner notes, and currently hosts a live drummer radio cast. She co-authored Ed Shaughnessy's autobiography, Lucky Drummer. Her newest offering is a biography of the great drummer Jeff Porcaro. Robyn continues to work in print, audio, and video genres and hosts the website RobynFlansDrummerInterviews.com. My interview with Robyn Flans, next on Drummer Nation. Hudson Music presents Bobby Morris, My Las Vegas. His autobiography is the inspiring story of one man achieving his dreams and rubbing elbows with the greatest personalities of the 20th century. Drummers who prefer dark cymbals with fast responses will love the HH Vanguard series from Sabian. Vanguard provides an elegant, complex sound that is always musical. Each model is fully hand-hammered to be thin and light, with a flatter profile for a deep fundamental tone and a smaller, musically integrated bell. The result is a clean, woody stick definition with exceptional articulation and responsiveness. Find detailed information at Sabian.com/Vanguard. Memphis Drum Shop is the world's premier provider of percussion instruments. With 6 showrooms of gear, MyCymbal.com, the Memphis Gong Chamber, and a first-rate repair department, turn to Memphis Drum Shop for all your percussion needs. Welcome again to another edition of Drummer Nation, and my guest today is Robyn Flans. Robyn, thank you for doing my show, and welcome.
Thank you for asking me. I'm honored.
Well, it's my honor. I've been a fan of yours before I even knew who you were, because I used to read all the Modern Drummer magazines.
And you thought I was a guy.
No,
right?
That year, in those years, oddly enough, I didn't pay attention to who wrote it. I was just trying to pay attention to what the artist had to say. Now, as a journalist myself, your work is very meaningful to me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Before we get into that, let's get some background on you. How did you get started were you a drummer as a girl, or tell me that path that led you to being a drum journalist?
I was not a drummer. I was actually a theater arts major and decided I wasn't cut out for the rejection, and decided that music was my other love, and how could I be valuable in that industry. I love to write. I didn't play an instrument, and writing was my second love, and I just became that, and drums was the thing I was most gravitated towards. It was for me the foundation in music. So naturally, that was where I sort of went. And my first call after I got some credibility, I called Billboard magazine. They let me review for them, which was amazing in itself. And then my first call was to Modern Drummer, and they were a fledgling little magazine out of their garage. Mm-hmm. And Ron Spagnardi, God bless him, gave me a shot. Of course, I probably made myself sound a little more important than I was. And my first article was with Danny Seraphine, and it was a cover story. And Danny and I are good friends to this day, and the rest is history. 30 years with them, over 30 years with them.
And a pioneer as well, I might add, not only in the infancy of percussion journalism, but there weren't a lot of women around doing that gig back then, right?
Well, like I said at the get-go of this, most people didn't know I was a female.
Oh,
yeah. They thought I was a guy.
Really?
And when I showed up, because Robyn could be a guy.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'll never forget the look on Steve Smith's face when he opened that hotel room door, and there I stood.
A woman.
And he just looked at me and looked at me, and I had to win his trust. And it was all good. We're still friends. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he's hired me to do some pretty neat projects, and I'm I'm it's great, to win that trust. And as a woman, you have to work harder. I mean, it is the truth.
That's a fascinating story. It never occurred to me that they wouldn't know you were a woman until they
Oh
met you.
gosh. And I still, social media is an interesting thing because you find out a lot about what people thought. I mean, I knew none of that going into any of this, but social media, so many people have turned up and said, I thought you were a guy. I
Wow.
thought you were a guy. I mean, my ex-husband said, I thought you were a guy. Till actually he saw me at a clinic for Larry London in Nashville, back at a earlier decade. But
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, most people thought I was a
Well, once they got over that, and you
guy.
proved yourself as valuable as anyone, I imagine the musicians embraced you.
Yeah, but like I said, I had to win their trust.
Right.
It would have
Right.
been different if I had walked in a guy.
Hmm. Now, you said you were attracted to doing drummers as interview subjects rather than guitar players, bass players. Why is that? You said it was the foundation of the music?
Yeah, to me, it was the foundation. I always found myself, listening to music or going out to clubs or whatever, and I was doing this,
Hmm.
and that was the
The
drums.
drums moved you.
Yeah,
Now,
so I just knew that that was what I wanted to follow. And of course, I've written for other magazines. I
mhm.
mean, I also interview celebrities. I mean, I've interviewed everybody from Tom Hanks to uh, gosh, I can't, Julia Roberts. I mean,
Mhm.
I've I've worked for People and In Touch and Country Weekly, and so
Okay, well,
I have.
let me ask you this: if you weren't a drummer, what was your key to interviewing these drummers? Because you didn't know to ask them about rudiments and paradiddles and this and that, and tech gear and all that crap. How did
You
you
know,
approach them?
I learned as I went. I did. I don't know. That's a really good question, Michael. I sort of learned while I went. I talked to my friends who were drummers, and they helped me. Uh, I had good friends.
Well, if I could partially answer that question for you, is the ability to interview somebody is not based on the specific knowledge of their business. Nobody was better at that than Larry King. And he used to say, I don't want to know about them. I don't want to read their book. I don't want to know anything. He had a few notes, but he wanted the listener or the viewer to learn about that person as he did, with an
It,
inquiring mind, and ask them about themselves and who they are as people.
yeah. And
That.
that's really funny, Michael, because I always tell people don't talk to me before the interview. Don't talk to me.
Mhm.
Don't call me. Don't anything me because I want it fresh.
Right. And this is the first time we've met, you and I.
Yes.
So a lot of great stuff comes from that. Just allowing people. I was listening to Dan Rather interviewing Dick Cavett, and when he said he wanted to start doing interviews, a friend of his said, "Well, whatever you do, don't do interviews, do conversations."
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what I have always tried to do. Um, and my style became mixing the personal with the drum stuff. And in fact, that's what led me to no longer work for Modern Drummer. I mean, we had a sort of a parting of the ways when um, Bill Miller left the earth,
Right.
because he was a dear friend and he championed me. And the new regime took over and didn't really appreciate my personal investment in the artist. And
That's a
I
shame.
I said I can't give you anything else. That's what I do.
Hmm.
And that's what I bring to the table is a combination. And my view of interviewing somebody is when I sit down with someone, I want to be able to appeal to the 12-year-old in Iowa who's just learning how to play drums and might want to know the size of somebody's stick so that he can go out and emulate his hero. And I also want to appeal to Jim Keltner, who doesn't care about the size of somebody's stick, but wants to know about the drummer's muse.
There you go. I did an interview recently where the drummer said, "Don't you want to know about my snare strainer?" And I said, "No, I don't care what snare strainer you use, buddy. I want to know who you are as a person and how that tempers your music."
That's right. And
So,
so I was aware that, there were 12-year-old Iowans wanting to know those things,
mhm.
but I wanted to temper it with Jim Keltner. So I always was aware of those two factors. And then they wanted to get rid of that part of me. And I said, I can't do that for you.
Well, there comes a time when you stand up for yourself, and good for you. Um, on a positive note, a lot of those interviews you did are online at your website now, right? And available?
Some of them are, and they're in audio form.
Hmm.
What I have done is made it available at very low cost, like $1.99 and
I
things
like
like that.
that.
I want people to be able to hear and be in the room.
Hmm.
I always felt privileged to have that interaction with people, to hear, Jeff Porcaro laugh. Um, I always said that if I could bottle his laugh, I'd make $1 million,
Hmm.
and I'm sincere about that. It would be a moneymaker. Um,
That comes through in spades in the book.
yeah,
But let's talk before. This isn't your first rodeo as an author of a book. You wrote one. Did you co-write with Ed Shaughnessy?
I did.
That's a great book too. I read that, and Ed was a friend of mine. Tell me about that experience.
Oh God, Eddie became one of my best friends in life. He was really a special man, and later in his life, as we co-wrote together the book, we became very close. And his wife, Eileen, who I don't know if everybody knows, was the voice of Cinderella, and they modeled Cinderella, the actual figure, after her, the dainty, beautiful Eileen Shaughnessy. And and later in my life, I had occasion to I had to move, and I ended up moving really close to his home, which was a meant to be, because as he got older, he needed my help. And so I would take him to his doctor's appointments, and every day I would go and get the mail for him and take it up his long, hilly driveway and leave it at his front door. And he helped me out too. Things were tough financially for me, and he was, if my car broke down, he'd, make sure that I could get it fixed. I mean, we were best friends. And uh, there for each other. Let's put it that way.
That's great because
Uh,
I know he had a lot of loss in his life as well.
he had tremendous loss in
Hmm.
his life. I don't even know how somebody goes on after that. He had tough times
Hmm.
because of it. Writing that book was an honor that I can't even begin to tell you. It was several years we were working on it, and they were great years of my life. And he is a national treasure.
Yes, thank you for that story, and I concur completely. Now, let's give it full credit. The name of the book was Lucky Drummer, or is Lucky Drummer,
Yes.
and is it
Yes.
available on Hudson? Right?
God bless Rob Wallace.
You're not kidding.
God bless Rob Wallace. And he decided it was out of print. And it still is technically out of print.
Exactly.
But Rob decided to republish it in digital form. So it is available now. And when he told me he was going to do that, I wept like a baby.
He's another
So,
pioneer and a good friend.
yeah.
He's done my show, and I have a book out through Hudson. Okay, so let's move into the next realm here, which is the book is called Jeff Porcaro. No, I'm sorry. It's About Time. Jeff Porcaro, the man and his music.
Yes,
Is that the right sequence?
it
I'm
is.
sorry.
It
Well,
is.
Rob was nice enough to forward me a copy, and I just finished reading it. And let me tell you, I really enjoyed that book. What a wonderful work of love that was and is.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. It's a work of love. And
yeah,
I cried through most of it.
well, it shows. It comes through. There's a lot of passion and emotion in that. And let's talk about the preparation for that book because you have so much, so many sources, fabulous sources. I mean, you talk to. I don't have my notes in front of me here, but you talked to heavyweights all through the industry, and they were all of one mind with regard to praise for Jeff Porcaro.
Yes. I could have gone on forever too. I mean, Rob finally said, "Let it go, let it go, let it go," like the Frozen song. Um, I it I could still be writing it. I spent a lot of years writing it, and I can't even recall when I decided to write it. It just sort of became
Hmm.
a part of me. Um, I knew I had to write it. I knew I was the keeper of his flame, and I somehow it just manifested itself inside of me.
Well, let's talk about that because you've interviewed dozens and dozens of drummers specifically. What was different about Jeff?
Um, Everything.
What made him more special than any of the others you could have done a book on?
Well, I've been really blessed, and I've made a lot of really dear friends in this industry. I mean, I have, and but Jeff and I were really good friends, and I guess the fact that he left us so high and dry and so soon and so young and so tragically and so miserably, and I miss him so horribly. Um, and I did a lot of interviews with him,
Hmm.
and he made himself accessible at every turn for me. I mean, there wasn't a phone call. I say it in the book, in the preface. There wasn't a phone call he didn't return. If he was in the studio, he called me back. If he was on tour, he called me back. I mean, there was nothing he wouldn't do for me, and um, and we were close. We were good friends.
It comes across. We'll get to his generosity in a minute, but reading the book, you focused on the music, which I really appreciated. And if you wanted to pick one word to describe Jeff's playing, it would be groove, right?
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We can find drummers with flashing technique and all kinds of antics and this and that, but just the groove and the musicality of his. Reading the book made me, I'm a drummer, you can see behind me, it made me practice my Porcaro grooves,
Good.
because
Good.
because it made me
Supposed
go
to
back and
inspire.
listen to them and make sure I had them right and work them with a metronome and all that. But let's
Yes.
talk about him as a drummer. Aside from being a
Yeah.
groove merchant, he started. Tell about how he was what 17, 18 in high school.
Yeah. He was in high school, and he was debating on whether to just become an artist. I mean, he was an actual uh, artist,
Hmm.
and might have gone that route if Sonny and Cher hadn't offered him a gig.
In high school.
Yeah, in high school, and the money appealed to him. The money,
Hmm.
and he thought, this looks interesting. And of course, what got him that was a chance meeting with David Hungate. And David Hungate was the conduit to the Sonny and Cher gig.
I like the
And
way, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I like the way you relate how all these guys were friends as kids and they remained friends and they would say, hey man, you got a drummer on this date? Call Jeff. And he would do the same.
Yeah.
And then it
Oh,
just snowballed and snowballed. Once in that realm, you get a few hits under your belt and then you're sought after highly. And those guys were working
I loved
crazy.
that I loved that pact that Paige and Jeff had when after they finally met, of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Mm-hmm.
You get me on whatever gig and I'll get you on whatever gig, and it was just like that. I mean, they
Yep.
were my favorite picture in the whole book, and it was one of the last pictures to be submitted, is the picture of Jeff and David at uh, at David's wedding.
Oh yeah, it's a great picture.
I cried when David said that over to me. I mean, that was his favorite picture. I asked him for a photo from his life with Jeff, and that's my favorite picture in the whole book.
It's beautiful. Now he started working. He came on my radar with Boss Gags and
Yes,
Lowdown, which is one of
yes.
the grooves I set my butt down to play yesterday.
Ugh, ugh.
I know, right?
It's
Um,
like ugh.
the perfect track for the perfect tune. He reminds
It
me of, as a writer, it's a lot easier to add words than to take them out, right?
is.
And a real editor usually condenses things, or like Poe
Yeah.
with the short story. One extra word is too many. One
Oh
less
yeah.
is too few. That describes his drum parts.
Perfection.
Yeah, but
Perfection.
he knew when to hold his own too. He knew when to say, "I got it. Listen to this. Find a mistake. Okay, see you later. Thank you." And hold his. It comes across as how warm and sincere and gracious he was, and generous with his talents and helping with the song. But he knew when it was done, it was done.
Yeah.
And let's not play around anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the producers say, he'd come into the control room and he'd say, uh, that was the take.
Mm-hmm. And it was.
They sort of have to honor his opinion.
Well, he was right. Yeah, one of the things that indicates how young they were is some of the anecdotes in there. I love the story with Mike Baird's kit, and
Oh, God.
we won't get into too detailed. But I think the story was Jeff's borrowing Baird's kit, and he leaves a filthy cartoon on the floor, Tom, and Baird answers with a filthier one. And then that same kid is brought to a session for Baird by like a religious artist, right?
Yep. Yep.
And he's saying to his carnage people, "Whatever you do, don't send that head over there." And he gets there and he gets fired, man. But
That's,
those are boys having fun.
yeah. Yep. They were, imagine having all those guys in your home for a studio roundtable.
That's what I
Can
know
you
you did that.
imagine the time of my life?
That's a great piece, and it's on your website available,
It
right?
is in audio version.
Yeah, for $2 or $3 or something.
Yeah, I think it's $4
All right,
because
$4.
it was a hard one to edit.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you something. That was one of the best days of my life.
Tell everybody who was there.
That was Mike Baird, Harvey Mason, Jim Keltner, Steve Schaefer, Denny Fongheiser, and Jeff Porcaro. Who am I leaving out?
I don't remember offhand, but it's quite a lineup.
I think there was someone else.
It'll come to you, or I encourage everybody to look it up and
Oh
buy
my
that
God.
piece because it sure is great.
it was the craziest, oh, Vinny!
Oh,
How
Vinny.
could I
How could we
forget
leave out
Vinny?
Vinny?
Vinny!
Now, speaking of which, I love his generosity on a date when he would say, this is not, Keltner would be better on this track than me. Call him on the phone. Jim, what are you doing? Come on over. And he'd be on the track, and Porcaro would be standing there grinning, watching him, supporting him. Nobody
And
does
there
that.
are so many stories like that, Michael, even more than were in the book. I mean, drummers galore will tell, and Jim calls it the unthinkable.
Yeah.
Jeff would do the unthinkable.
Nobody would do that but him.
Nobody would do that.
Absolutely not. No, they're there for a reason, and they figure that's. But he would say, "Man, I can't play a shuffle. Get Bernard for this." And of course, his shuffles are to die for. Now, why did he think he couldn't play a shuffle?
Michael, I don't know.
He's just modest.
Because he insisted that he struggled with it, and nobody knows why. I don't know. Maybe it just his mind messed with him.
Could have been he wasn't personal. Go ahead.
That famous quote that he gave me a long time ago. My time sucks. I mean, what the hell is that?
I remember reading that. All I can say about that is he's not thinking about his time sucks in regard of does it stick with the click, does it get faster or slower. He's thinking about mastering the subdivisions between the notes in the stink of it, the groove, the thing
Right.
and he's never going to be satisfied with that.
No.
So he's looking at it like, well, my time sucks, but everybody knows. I mean, Mr. Time for his generation. Yeah.
I don't know. And I would give him a hard time, and then he'd yell at me, and he'd say, "You just don't know. You don't know. You don't know anything." I'd say, "Believe me, I know. I have ears. I know."
Well, it was humility is the founding of all that. It's just based in humility and a desire to get better.
And to always do well, and wanting to be better, and wanting to be good. And I would say to him, "You're your own worst critic." And he said, "No, that's not what it is. It's not good. I can't listen to the stuff that I do."
Well, you hear actors say that too. Academy Award winners can't watch their own movies.
It's true.
Yeah. Well,
and that's why you're good at what you do, because you always strive to be good.
Let's talk about some of my favorite tracks, and probably yours too.
Sure.
Lowdown, right? I think of Rosanna in Africa. We'll talk about that in a minute. Keep Forgetting, Mike McDonald.
Whose birthday, by the way, I'd like to have a shout out.
Please.
Happy birthday, Michael McDonald.
And thank you for the great music, Michael. Yeah.
And one of my favorite humans on the planet.
I don't know him, but that's nice to hear.
The best.
Beautiful. Continuing on, Morning, Al Jarreau. That's a hell of a groove, man. It swings, but it's straight eight, but it's not. And it's just halftime shuffle swing. And, it's hard to describe that groove. And it's really hard to play it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know, but I'm sure.
You can write it down and get it together, but that feel, through the whole thing that he can do in one take, it's just amazing. Of course, Beat It, Human Nature, Girl Is Mine. That's another one with a funky feel to it, with a shot, kind of a lilt and a swing in it. New York Minute.
Georgie Porgy.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are some of your favorites?
Georgie Porgy. Yeah, everything you've mentioned.
I was getting to some more, but go ahead.
All of that first Michael McDonald solo album, all of the tracks that he played are just amazing. Now I can't even think of the names, but
that's okay. The whole album is killing.
Yeah, he and Gad split that album, and it's pretty amazing.
Then there was his work with Steely Dan.
How could we forget that?
Talk about
that's his favorite.
Well, it's a lot of drummers. I mean, if you could define the LA sound in the 80s, I lived there then. That was kind of it, the studio LA sound. groove meets perfection. That's the other thing. With Toto, they had sequencers and all that, and he was used to playing with a click, and he can nail that. But you got to do more than that, or they can use the damn drum machine. It's got to have heart and soul and feel and groove. And he's one of those guys that were able to mix those together where you didn't know where one stopped and the other started. In terms of studio perfection versus feel and heart and soul.
See, Jeff didn't mind. Jeff hated to do more than 2 takes on a session. But when it came to Steely Dan, he didn't mind working like a slave because the music was so artistic to him.
Tell that all night story.
The Gaucho?
Yeah.
Oh. Gaucho was the quintessential horror story for any drummer, but Jeff was insistent on being there all night. Fagan had a penchant for just abandoning songs when he couldn't get them to happen fast enough for him. And Gary Katz wasn't having it on Gaucho. He loved Gaucho and wanted it to be a song. So he said, okay, go home, Fagan. We're going to work on this. Jeff did not want to abandon it. Jeff said, I want to see this through to the end. And they stayed until 5 o'clock in the morning, getting one take, one measure at a time. Gary would record one measure and get it into the machine, and then they'd go back and record another measure and another measure and another measure, and they were there till 5 when they called Fagan to come in and say, okay, it's good, I'm going back to sleep.
And they were there with a whole band all night just to get a drum track.
Yes, to get a drum track. Now, see, Jeff said that the rest of the band never knew that they were just there
They're
to
sweating
get
bullets all night long.
And it was on all their stuff that they would do that. And Jeff said they never knew that they were only there to support the drums. Can you imagine?
No, I can't. But he
was willing to work so hard. And Katz told me that of all the tracks, that was what he was most proud of.
Really? Even though he could play complete takes, first time, second time, and nail it, he liked that one. Yeah. Probably because of the perfection demanded by those guys, Fagan and Becker. Yeah. Now, the schedule he kept was amazing as well. You mentioned in the book he would do 3 dates in a day, and what do they start, like 10 o'clock? And then an afternooner and an evening thing. And then, what was the album he was working on they had to do at 2 or 3 in the morning?
Frampton. Frampton wanted him so badly that he actually scheduled his album. I forget the name of it. He actually scheduled his album to record in the middle of the night, and Jeff agreed to it.
Yeah, so he'd do
extra session.
3 sessions in a day, all nighter, and then start over the next morning. Now, you do focus entirely on the music, which I appreciate, but there are some drugs mentioned in there. Marijuana, I guess that's a safe bet these days to say, who cares, right?
Right.
But you wonder how those guys got through all those dates.
You know what's interesting, Michael? I just had a conversation with Michael Omartian because I am thinking about doing a second book.
On Jeff or the studio scene? On Jeff. And it will be more personal?
No, it's more stories. In fact, it will be called Stories. Wonderful. It's just, I'm thinking about it because so many people have come to me since this book came out and have said, I wish I had known. I have a story. And to be really honest, I can't let this go.
Right.
I feel like there's still so much, and so many people have come to me and said, I didn't want it to end.
Right.
And I stopped reading it 3/4 of the way so that I could finish it in a few weeks because I was so heartbroken it was ending.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I might, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just toying with, is there enough? Would it be fair? But so many people want to talk more.
You mentioned the not wanting it to end. That's how I felt when I was reading the book. Of course, it did end. And when I was there, I lived in LA then. And when he died in what, 80, 90, 82?
92.
92, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
92, um, it was like a shockwave went through the industry, you know?
Yeah. It was, it was, yeah, there was, there were no words. I mean, I can just shoot myself back to that moment in time that Vinny called me that night. And it was, yeah. And
Yeah.
I then called, I mean, Jim Keltner and I talk about it all the time because the chain was Vinny. Lenny called Vinny, Lenny Castro.
Mhm.
Vinny called me, and I called Jim. And it was just,
That's a lot of tears.
it was just the worst night of my life.
I imagine. Now, you make a point not to deal with that in the book. What was your thinking there?
Well, there is some controversy about his death. And rather than stir up a controversy, I was not interested in that. There was a lot of congenital heart issues in Jeff's family. Joe and I talked about it a lot.
Joe is his dad.
Yeah. And then there were the drugs, and then there were it was something that I felt like I really wanted this book to be a celebration of Jeff, and to concentrate on the ending of his life just seemed so antithetical to what I was trying to give to the people who were waiting so long for a piece of him again. And I wanted to bring him back to people for a while. And that was the biggest comment I got from people was, oh, thank you so much for bringing him back again for me. It's been so long. And so I really felt like I had accomplished my mission. And if I had gone into that, it wouldn't have been that. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that's a great answer. And it's so heartfelt. I can see the emotion in you as you speak of it.
I just, his death was so painful to all of us. And why relive it?
Right.
We all lived it.
Well, moving on to a positive thing, he was, what, 38 when he died? And I love
Yeah.
that your book has an index. So many books don't. And I love that it has the discography there. And when you start reading through that discography,
I will congratulate Hudson on that.
man, it's dozens of pages, and it's not by song. I mean, each artist will have like all the songs and then another artist, and it goes on and on and on. And he was only 38.
Joe worked tirelessly on that. He just worked and worked on that, and Rob was a champion, and I couldn't have asked for a better team. Hudson just rules. They are just, somebody else wanted this book.
It belongs with Hudson now.
And I am so glad that I made this decision. Mm-hmm. They are the best. They are such good people.
Hello everyone, my name is David Victor. I'm General Manager with the Craviato Drum Company. We wanted to offer a one-ply, solid shell product, but we wanted it to stay true to our mission of offering handmade drums of uncompromised quality built here in the USA. So take a listen to our Center Stage Series drum set.
Hi, this is Stanton Moore. I've been playing and teaching drums for over 30 years. Stanton Moore Drum Academy is the perfect online drum learning platform for any level drummer to learn how to play the drums the same way I did. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you as subscribers on the site, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
I do want to say also, I do want to add that, yeah, Toto and his family were so generous to me. They from the get-go, they were on board. They helped me. They were at my beck and call. I mean, no matter where they were in the world, those boys answered my emails. They answered every stupid question I had.
They trusted you, and they loved Jeff.
They loved Jeff, and they knew that this was not going to be some hatchet job or,
right.
You know, I mean, Steve Porcaro gave me the best compliment, and he's not prone to compliments. He just said, if anyone was doing this, I'm so glad it's you. Because he knew that I just, how I feel about his brother. Mm-hmm. And that family was so generous. I mean, Jolene went through all the pictures with me, and we laughed and cried, and she gave me anything I wanted, and his artwork, and David Hungate was, I mean, they were all just amazing. I mean, David Page was going through some hard times, and he still showed up and for me, and they were amazing. They were just amazing. I love them. They were just like brothers to me, all of them. All of them.
It shows, Robyn, and I sure appreciate what you've done. The book is It's All About Time, Jeff Porcaro, The Man and His Music, the author Robyn Flans. Thank you so much for this interview.
I am so grateful for your time, Michael. Really, I am, because I did this for Jeff and for the people who love him and for his family. And I appreciate getting the word out.
I'm happy to do it. I can't improve upon what you just said. And I just want to thank you once again for being a guest on the show. And look in the show notes, and you can find Robyn's website, the Shaughnessy book, and this wonderful book about Jeff Porcaro. Thank you again, Robyn.
Thank you, Michael.